Greetings, friends! Today, I want to showcase the complete guide for my Twin Comet Stormweaver build. This is going to be the last guide for this character, and I will cover everything you need to know, like skill rotation, ideal gear slots, passives and gems, etc. The build cost is around 10 divines, but we crafted most of our gear on stream and can be played in stages from early game all the way to endgame content. This is a level 91 Stormweaver build that is self-casting Comet with spell echo. The first Comet gives us a way to break our second skill called Frost Walls, resulting in freezes and cold exposure, followed by the second Comet that consumes the freeze for more damages and elemental resist nullification. In terms of defenses, we have 75% all resists and chaos inoculation. That makes us immune to chaos damage. We have 11,600 energy shield with 3,105 energy shield per second, 105% recharge delay modifier, 2,400 mana, 400 mana recovery per second, 20% damage taken recouped as mana. This comes from our amulet anoint over here. In terms of offense, we're sitting at around 114k DPS without any buffs or utility, and 228,000 DPS on Comets inside Sigil of Power and Mana Tempest, without calculating the Biting Frost gem, which is this one, that consumes all the freezes, and without taking into consideration our curse setup, as well as thin ice and heavy frost. For reference, Cold Snap sits at 740,000 DPS because the consumed frozen enemies are an implicit modifier calculated by the game. So the real number for Comet, it is a bit higher, but as it stands right now, it's sitting at 60% critical hit chance with 167 critical damage bonus and 28% cold resist penetration and 1 echo. That means cast this twice with same cast. In terms of gems, we're gonna start off with our Ascendancy Elemental Storm. This comes from this passive right here called Tempest Color, and it is linked with Ingenuity, Frost Nexus, Magnified Effect, Persistence, and Control Distraction. This is the last addition. After you make level 90 on the character, you'll get the 6 link for free on the game. But it doesn't make a huge difference having this or without. Our main spell, Comet, is linked with Spell Echo, Fighting Frost, Elemental Focus, Consider Casting, and Extraction. Spell Echo allows us to cast Comet twice at the cost of cast speed. That is why we need to prioritize getting some cast speed on gear and some on the passive tree. Elemental Focus doesn't let us inflict any ailments, but gives us 25% more damage, and the downside is similar to Biting Frost, which says skills cannot cause freeze buildup in order to consume a freeze for 50% more damage. So we take advantage of this downside twice. After testing, I've added Consider Casting to the build as the 5th link for an extra DPS boost at the cost of more cast speed, because we only lose about 0.10 seconds but gain a considerable amount of damage. As you can see, from 175 or 172 we reach 185, which is not that big of a deal. The last gem, Extraction, gives us a 25% damage as extra chaos damage with no downside because 10% of one life is something Path of Exile doesn't calculate. Feel free to use inspiration instead of this if you're having mana problems. Our second spell is called Frost Walls, and it is linked with spell cascade, glaciation, cold, exposure, and font of mana. Every cast spawns 3 walls of frost, and this allows us to create safe spaces where we cast Comet without worrying about mobs rushing us. But some mobs break the ice instantly and get frozen as a result, along with cold exposures, and buffs us with font of mana for greater mana sustain. If you're doing maps with a friend, this spell can become your spammable to freeze and damage everything if your party can break the walls, allowing us to save casting Comet for rares and bosses. Our utility clear spell is called Cold Snap, and this is linked with Cold Mastery, Concentrated Effect, and Arcane Tempo. This spell helps quite a lot with clear speed if you do not feel like waiting 1.5 seconds for Comet to be cast to consume a freeze from regular monsters. These two spells in combination work wonders in party play. For our Spirit Reservation, I've opted to go with Archmage for extra damage in the form of lightning damage, and it is linked with Lightning Mastery. This is why we stack maximum mana on gear and mana regeneration on spells and passives, along with rare jewels that gives us 2% mana gain on kill because of the huge mana cost increased. But it is a very good aura that gives us damage, so I highly encourage you to make it work on your build. If you have 60 spirit to spare, highly suggest getting Blink, as it's very satisfying having a dash, but purchasing a 60 spirit armor with energy shield can become quite expensive. If you have an armor without spirit, feel free to skip the Blink, or if you have like 20 to 30 spirit on your armor, get Arctic armor linked with clarity instead. For our utility spells, we make full use of our gem slots as well as weapon set skill points. I'm gonna start off with the mana Tempest over here, which is linked with premeditation and energy barrier. This spell allows us to degen mana when we cast a spell for a lot of extra lightning damage. Depending on your mana sustain, you will be able to cast Comet once or twice before degening to 0 mana. We only take a single +5 strength node from the passive tree in order to satisfy the requirement of the premeditation support gem. The rest is intelligence around. Moving on, we have the Sigil of Power setup, and this gives us 50% more spell damage after spending 50% of our mana, which is definitely not a problem because we use a lot of mana when it comes to our spells. This is a huge upgrade because not only is Comet costing a fair chunk of mana, but we are already sitting in place when casting, so it is a great addition to the build. In order to get this spell, you will need a chiming staff, ideally with level 18 Sigil of Power and plus level of spell gems. I have one with +4, but you can get one +6, but they are very expensive. But this one results in a 22 Sigil of Power when the weapon swap happens. You can see I'm on my wand right now. When I press Sigil of Power, I already switched to my staff. Another thing that we cast with our second weapon is Curse. This curse is called Hypothermia, and it's linked with Heightened Curse, Curse Ground, and Hex Bloom. So we are using the 24 weapon passives to take as much curse effect as we can, curse duration, and utility from the tree. with the second weapon set. The way I can explain this in a very easy way, you will have to refund 24 of your passive skill points from the tree, leaving all the structure and pathing, defenses and such on the tree. For example, let's say I will not take this wheel because it's only for damage, but I will take this wheel because it's only for defenses. I will take this because it's stun and I will always need stun, but I will not take this because it's damage. For this, and this way we can switch between two weapon skill sets, one that is specialized in damage. You can see here these orange points are all damage, and on our offhand, when we have the staff up, we will have all the curse duration and curse effect. They are also highlighted in the planner I've linked in the video description, as well as in the game with orange and green colors. Last but not least, we have lightning warp, which is a way to call enemies that are low on life without having to cast Comet. I highly recommend getting 20% quality on all available gems because it makes a huge difference, or purchase them from trade side already with sockets and quality to save currency. A quick note here, all the innate spells that we have, including Elemental Storm, Sigil of Power, Power Siphon, stuff like that, cannot gain quality from Gem Cutter Prism. I believe it is a visual bug that we are able to see what quality will do when we press Alt, but there is no way to actually increase it. Our skill rotation looks like this. We cast Curse and then Sigil of Power, then a Frost Wall to quickly switch back to our main weapon, after which we do a Wing Comet, then another wall, and another Comet, another wall, another Comet, and you see the trend here. The rotation works for 3 Comets, but if there is a boss or a big monster that refuses to die, we can press Mana Tempest after the second cast for an extra boost, but this will most likely force us to move out of the Sigil of Power because of the mana DJ. So it will look something like this. Now I will quickly show the gear that I am using. However, I will provide a link in the description with all the gear, passives, jewels and skill rotation for you to check out in another format. We are using a single unique called Everlasting Gaze, which goes for a fair chunk of currency at the moment, but the build 100% works without it. I've decided to get this amulet to help sustain the mana cost increased by Archmage and make ourselves a little bit tanky with the energy shield from mana. But any amulet with mana regen, maximum mana, percent energy shield and cast speed works just as well. For rings, we are very interested in using these breach rings with 50% mana quality, packing as much mana or mana regeneration as possible, along with cast speed and annual resists. A ring like this that also have mana regeneration on it goes for multiple divines. Those ones I've just purchased for 1 divine each, and they are pretty decent with cast speed, a little bit of res, and of course the mana that is amplified by the quality. Belt, we are looking for 2 charm slots and flat mana, along with any resists if possible. In terms of gloves, boots and helmet, all we need is mana and energy shield, as well with any resists that we can get. This wand I've made on stream after purchasing a 5-fold spell skills wand and exalting it twice. Not being part of the meta allows us to get powerful items for cheaper. In terms of charms, I recommend getting a gold charm for extra loot, and going for immune to ignite and immune to bleed, so your energy shield is not interrupted from regening. Ideally, our focus should have a bit of extra spell damage or cold damage, along with triple resist and a fair chunk of ES. Again, this could get pretty expensive. I have purchased a double resist shield and exalted it on stream, and I've got lucky enough to receive another resist. It's pretty hard getting a 500 energy shield chest piece that also has 60 spirit. That is because the roll is between 57 and 61. So not only you'll need a tier 8 spirit, it will also need to be rolled on a 60 minimum, and this allows us to get the blink dash, which is definitely worth it in my opinion, but it is quite of an investment at this point. In terms of passive tree, again, I will provide a link with the passive tree in the description, but to summarize it, we are focusing on critical, energy shield, and of course mana. We need a lot of mana to get extra energy shield, and we are using the stun threshold on our energy shield instead of life, because we need to be able to withstand any hit without interrupting our casts with Comet. Like I briefly mentioned, we also use these jewels, recover 2% of mana on kill, which make a huge difference in clearing speed and mana regained. They're going for quite a bit of money at this point, but I highly suggest you trying to craft them yourself. All of these jewels will be in the description for you to check out. For the permanent buffs from campaign, I took +5 to all stats and charms charges gained, and I believe this has been pretty much it for my Twin Comet Stormweaver guide. If you have any questions or suggestions, please post them down below in the comment section, or come ask them in chat when I stream. I will love to have you there. Thank you very much for your time, and as always, hope to see you soon, Exile.